volunteers, right? So this is going to be quick and easy, hopefully, and we're just going to use a very simple theme. We're going to call it the OR theme, right? The OR theme, like the operating room. So instead, OR here means obtain and retain. Obtain and retain, right? You want to get more people to help volunteer for you, but more importantly, you want to keep those volunteers coming back. The amount of effort it takes to go out and recruit new volunteers constantly and retrain them and redevelop their talents is enormous. Rather than do that, you want to recruit a group of volunteers and then retain those volunteers. Keep those people coming back. Let them develop and become leaders on their own. And then maybe have those people retain and obtain new volunteers. But you're going to be much better off investing your energy in making sure that volunteers feel part of the organization, that they come back consistently, that they're continuing to build their skill sets and their abilities, rather than always having to figure out, gosh, you know, next week we have another voter registration drive and I need 20 people, I'm going to have to go out and find another 20 people, and the week after that we have this other voter registration drive, that's another 20 people. If you're always trying to get new people in the door, you're not going to be able to move forward very quickly or very far. Right? You have to have that core group. I often take the Dean campaign as a really good example of this, right? As Parag mentioned, you know, a lot of us came into politics through Howard Dean in 2003 and 2004, and a lot of us learned a lot of important lessons from that campaign, right? There were a lot of things that the campaign did well, and there were a lot of things that they learned that they didn't do so well. One of the things, however, that the Dean campaign was extremely good at, right, was getting a core group of dedicated volunteers, right, that consistently came back over and over again to stay engaged with the campaign and be part of that group, right? And what Dean demonstrated was that you're much better off having a smaller group of passionate people willing to do whatever it takes for you than having a big group of people who are all kind of lukewarm about it or only willing to do a little bit or contribute a little bit of their time. So how do you do this? How do you obtain and retain volunteers? Right? One of the very simplest rules and one of the biggest mistakes that most campaigns make, and this isn't just true for campaigns, this is true for any volunteer effort, community service, charitable organization, right, is that you don't have things for volunteers to do when they show up. Right? The easiest way to lose a volunteer is to have a campaign office out there, have a big sign up front, you know, so-and-so for city council or whatever, and people who, you know, hear about the campaign or maybe just walk by and see the sign, or maybe somebody, their friend tells them, they come in, they drop by and say, hey, I want to do something. And you say, oh gosh, I'm not ready, I'm not prepared, you know, come back next week and we'll have something for you to do. How likely do you think that person is probably going to come back next week? Probably not too likely, right? So you always want to be ready, no matter if it's somebody who's calling and saying, hey, I want to come in next week to help out, or if it's somebody who's walking in off the street, no warning, something for them to do, right? And I don't mean make up busy work that doesn't help anybody, right? This is why you have to do your groundwork and your homework beforehand. You have to think when you're starting the campaign, what are the immediate needs that we have? What are the various assignments that we have? How can I break down all of the tasks that we need to do into digestible pieces that are easy for volunteers to do, right? And you have to have a range of activities, right? You can't just be giving every volunteer that walks in the door the job of, okay, your job is to go raise $100,000, right? That's not going to keep people, right? It's going to scare a lot of people to death, right? There are some people who come in and maybe all they're really going to be capable of doing is, you know, stuffing envelopes, right? But that's an important task and it's something that has to be done, right? Where there's other people who come in and maybe they're really engaging and dynamic and they're going to be really great like block captains. And they're going to be good at going out and recruiting people from their neighborhood to become helpers or volunteers in the campaign. Use people effectively based on their skills. But no matter what they're doing, right, whether it's stuffing envelopes, whether it's raising $100,000, the key to retaining those volunteers, right, retaining those volunteers is going to be making sure that they feel they're genuinely a part of the operation, that their role is essential, no matter what they're doing. And it's really actually not too hard to make people feel a part of the team and to feel a part of the movement. Very simple technique that we've done in a lot of campaigns in Austin is that when people come in to volunteer, we take their picture with a Polaroid camera, right? Go get an old Polaroid camera off of eBay or, you know, off of Craigslist or something like that. Take their photo, and then you put it on the wall, and you have them write their name on it, right? In marker or something like that. Maybe even decorate it a little bit or something like that. And you have this whole wall, and so as soon as people walk into that office, the first thing they should see is this wall of pictures, right? Polaroid pictures with people's names on them. This is the team. These are the people that are making things happen, right? And everybody's face is on there, whether they're the person, raising those $100,000 or stuffing those envelopes. And the better way to do it, have every campaign staffer, have the candidate themselves do that, right? So that it's all part of one team, right? Whether I'm the campaign manager, I'm the person coming in to stuff envelopes or linking stamps, I'm going to be on that wall, I'm going to recognize that. And that's a way to build camaraderie, because then people can look at those pictures and say, oh, yeah, every time I come in on Wednesday, I see that woman, and oh, her name is Judy. I should say hi to Judy, because we're together. And maybe I find out from looking at that picture and talking to Judy a little bit that she lives near me, right? And then maybe realize, hey, why don't we throw a house party together, because we have a lot of neighbors that we know who might be able to help out. And you're consistently developing those volunteers to do more and more and better things, right? Then make sure that you're also continuing to challenge those people that show an ability and show a potential to do more, right? Most, in politics, you always hear these stories, these anecdotes of like, so-and-so, like David Axelrod, or, these people who became presidential campaign managers or whatever. Like, where did these people start out? I actually don't know where they started out. But a lot of these folks will literally tell you, right? I started out answering phones in some, local campaign office, right? And over the years, I rose to be, chief of staff for the President of the United States, right? That really does happen. And it really does depend on the ability for people, other people, to identify that talent and give those people responsibility. Right? So one of the things that's also important is make sure your volunteers understand that if they show the potential, they show responsibility, they show those things, that they're going to get rewarded, right? Not just with recognition, right? Recognition is good, having the candidate, they thank them, giving them, a pizza party or something like that, having those pictures on the wall, but also rewarding them with responsibility, right? For a lot of volunteers, it's actually that greater responsibility that they're really seeking, that they really value, and that really shows that you respect them. And so, one of the things that I always try to do is I always try to state, okay, who are the people who have demonstrated an ability to be reliable, right? In campaigns, one of the most difficult things is simply being reliable. My friend often gives advice from the opposite side. When people ask him, how do you want to, I want to get involved, how do I get involved? He says, it's very easy, there's only one rule. Show up and don't leave. Right? Show up and don't leave. And from the perspective of the campaign organizer, it's the same thing. Who is the person who's there every time? Who is the person who shows up early to set up and stays late to clean up and pick up the trash? Who is the person that, no matter how thankless the task, you can count on them to show up at 7 a.m. on the block or on the curb, with their trash bags or whatever to help, do the litter cleanup and do the charity project or paint the walls inside the campaign office, right? Those are the people that are going to be your superstar volunteers. That are going to form the core of not just your team, right, but those recruiters, right? They're going to help you make your job easier, right? Because the more of those people you have, the more reach you have into further networks, right? It's the same idea as communications, right? You want to imagine this web, right, that goes out there, and whether it's communicating a message or whether it's getting people